What up, big dogs? I'm your host, Coach Craig, and this is Athletes Unleashed. On today's episode, my guest is a Division II soccer player at Biola University. We discuss her incredible high school soccer accolades, her transition from competitive gymnast to full-time soccer player, and the major responsibility being a captain and leader on and off the field. Please enjoy my conversation with Briley Phelps. Thank you for doing this today.
Of course.
I've been looking forward to talking to you. We talk far too often as is, but it's nice to get our conversation recorded. I always say, like, if I could record the conversations that I have with athletes, that other athletes would find them helpful to them. And I think some of the things that I want to talk to you about today, other athletes will find helpful because they're going to find themselves in similar situations that you are in. And the way that you handle them and your approach, I think, might help them along the way. So let's just kind of rewind to the beginning of this year. High school soccer, well, club soccer, obviously, you play at a very high level. High school soccer, I coach on your team, and team had an incredible year. You had an incredible year. I mean, top of the top. So you guys won league, you won CIF, you won state championships, but you specifically were named the League Player of the Year, CIF Player of the Year, Daily News Player of the Year, almost LA Times Athlete of the Year. Pretty good season for you.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Not bad.
So on that team specifically, you are one of the captains, but I would consider you to be the leader of the team. And I think leadership is something that is not suited for everyone. And you've been playing for the same coach for a long time, club, high school, and now you've committed to go to college where he has gotten the job.
Yes.
So clearly you guys have a good relationship, but I know he is very hard on you and he has a lot of expectations on you as the leader. So for you, like, you've been the leader on pretty much every team you've been on for the past 7 years. And I think going to school, you're headed to Biola University in Southern California. And I would imagine you're going to be a leader there as well. So what does being a leader, what is being the captain, what does that mean for you? What do you feel like that puts on you for expectations?
Mm-hmm. I feel like the common misconception about that is that it's just soccer related, but it's so much more than just soccer because your teammates are looking to you when things are going great and when they're not going great, and your reaction kind of says a lot and sets the tone for the rest of the team. So I feel like being a leader is being an example for your teammates. Even when you're not playing well, you need to have a face on and be there for your teammates because it's about the team and it's not necessarily about you.
Right.
And then I feel like your ability does go along with it. Like, you need to step up in situations when others aren't expected to step up. And that's one of those situations where my coach would be harder on me because he expects me to step up. Mm-hmm. And that's my role on the team. I need to step up. And just getting along with your teammates is a huge part of it too. Even someone who you don't necessarily click with and someone who doesn't have similar interests to you. Because some people I just get along with naturally great. Mm-hmm. And there's other people I have to make an effort, and that's my responsibility because they should all feel comfortable talking to me.
Yeah.
Aside from soccer completely, just talking to me. And then soccer wise, you just need to perform.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a balance of being a leader, and a lot of people don't understand that it's a lot more than just soccer. And there's a lot of pressure coming from people watching because if you're wearing the armband, the captain armband, people expect you to perform. And also coming from your coach, there's a certain level that you need to be every single game. And if you're not that, you need to at least lead your teammates verbally and with your actions.
Yeah, I think a lot of people look at being the captain as you get to put the armband on game day, you get to go up and talk to the referees, you're the one that's doing a lot of the communicating. Mm-hmm. But what doesn't get seen is all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. So not only you got to be the leader in practice, like you said, you got to be the leader off the field, you're effectively in charge of the relationships that the team has, and you're the communicator. At least in our experience, all communication goes through you. You disseminate it to the rest of the team. Anybody who has an issue, they can take it up with the coach themselves, but a lot of times they'll bring it to you because you guys have a tight relationship and you can relay the info. But I think leadership is something that I think a lot of people underestimate. Like they put it in a box where it's like you just have to be able to perform. But there really is a lot that goes along with it.
Mm-hmm.
So for you, the off the field aspect, I know you find that very important. What besides like just making sure that you have at least a relationship with anyone? Like, is there anything that you do specifically or extra off the field where just to like ingratiate yourself with the group and like let them know that you're in charge and it's not that you're better than anyone, but you do have the higher expectations? How do you communicate that with them and how do you gain their respect in that way?
Yeah, and I feel like I was going to use the word respect goes a long way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not, being a leader doesn't mean you're better than them on the field or you're more important in any way. Like, it's a team, like 1 through say 30 on the roster. Like, it's making them all feel valued and that they like belong there and that they should play. And that like, yes, maybe my output as a player may be a little higher, but every person is there for a reason.
Right.
And I feel like making them feel that way and not like making them feel like they're less of a person or less of a player than I am just because maybe like a few of us have a higher output soccer-wise is really important. And even like learning the off the field stuff, being a leader has been harder for me because I'm so competitive. I just want to play and win at whatever cost, whoever to put down on the way is like,
Right.
But your teammates, it's more important than that because that's fine for like 1, 2, 3 games. But when you've been with a team for 7 years, if you are putting them down while you're on the rise, it's not gonna last.
So how do you deal with being super competitive? Like game is one thing. Obviously, you're competitive against the other team, but I've practiced with you. You're super competitive. I mean, me too. You're super competitive in practice. How do you manage that competitiveness and your desire to just run through people to get to your end goal, which is always winning? How do you manage that and still maintain the positive relationships with people?
It's a constant battle for me. Like I still am trying to figure that out to this day because I'm just so competitive. But like as I've gotten older and I've matured a little bit, my relationship with my teammates is more important than winning a dumb possession game at practice, even though in the moment I just want to win that possession game so bad. So it's really being mindful about what I say. Like, yes, we can make jokes, like mess around with each other, but like nothing that personally demeans or like even constructive criticism is important and like helping your teammates because everybody does that. It goes both ways. But like not saying anything that like after the drill they'd be like, what the heck? Why did Briley say that to me? So I feel like it's a fine line, just being very mindful of your words and what you say to each other and your actions, your body language. Like if they do something bad, throwing your arms up in the air, like that's like, that doesn't fly. So if like, I feel like your body language and how you speak and how you like present yourself to your teammates says a lot, even when you're frustrated. And like, I'm completely not perfect at that at all. Like sometimes I have to go up to them and be like, I didn't mean that. I was just in the moment. It's super competitive. Like, because then after, once the game's over and I like calm down, I'm like, the heck did I say that for?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's a constant battle that like, I feel like no one can perfect and you just have to like get better at it every day.
I mean, you're a human. Like you're going to make mistakes. I feel like that respect relationship, there's going to be times where you go too far, where you say, I mean, coaches have it too, where it's like, I pushed too hard or I said something I shouldn't have. And it's a delicate balance, the relationships that you build with your teammates and with your coaches, because you are in an environment that is hostile in a lot of ways. Because everyone has the same goal if you're playing on a highly competitive team, and it's to win.
Yeah.
But at the same time, winning isn't everything. And do you find yourself having to, I mean, I know that you said it's a constant process. Do you find yourself having to walk back a lot of things that you say? Or I think the other thing, at least for me as a coach, is I find myself having to temper my relationships depending on who it is. I can say certain things to certain people. I can say something to you that I think somebody else might find demeaning, but you know that we're just shit talking and we're having fun and we're being competitive, and it's just, I can see my competitive self in another person, and so it's like, okay, I can push this player harder. I can run my mouth a little bit to them, and then there's other people who are just a little bit more sensitive, and you have to gauge what you say based on the person. I think your relationship with that person, I would imagine, influences that as well. Yeah,
and it's like your comfort level with that person specifically. Like certain people I would like yell at across the field. Others, like I don't talk to them as much, so a conversation wouldn't be yelling across the field saying like messing with them, because they might take that personally because that's fair. Like they don't know me as well.
Right.
So like it's being really careful and like knowing like where they are on like the totem pole soccer wise. Like if they're on the lower end, like there's no reason to demean them anymore. Like if they're giving their best, that's all you can ask.
Right.
And like the players that I know can go farther and do better and they're just not like working that day, that's where you like get on them.
So, I mean, I know as a leader and in my experience, like the coach that you've played for forever, I coach with him.
Mm-hmm.
So I have experience with him as well. I've seen how he operates. And I know sometimes he will employ you to send a message to everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
He will let you know, hey, I need you to go talk to this person, find out what's going on. Because sometimes they don't want to talk to him. They'd rather talk to you or another one of their peers. How often do you find yourself now that you've had experience being the leader for so long and you've gotten to an age where you're a little bit older, a little bit wiser, you're still pretty young. Do you find yourself making the effort to go have those conversations without being prompted now? I know the coach might tell you, hey, I need you to go talk to this player or something, we notice stuff all the time. Like something's up with this girl today. Like something's going on with her. You want to go find out what's going on. Are you finding yourself more often going to do that on your own, or is it still something where you're being compelled by the coaches to go do it?
More often, not individual, just team-wise. Like I can read when my coach is starting to get frustrated or angry, and I'm like, okay, guys, let's start picking it up to try and like damage control, like our so we don't have to run or something like that. But like as far as personal relationships, it's not as common. Like there's certain like where it's just more comfortable to talk to me than the main coach, which makes complete sense. Or even anybody else on the team that they're comfortable with. Like it doesn't necessarily just fall on me because there are like multiple leaders on the team.
Right.
But like resolving it within the team before going to the main coach is, I say, much more important because going to big adults or older people or authorities, like it just usually creates a bigger issue than if you just go face to face with someone.
Yeah.
And I feel like honestly, usually that's between them and the other person, and very rarely do I get brought into that, thankfully. But if they do feel comfortable, like it's just a conversation, and I feel like for the better of the team, if that's what we need to do, then like.
Yeah, I feel like as a leader, sometimes you have to put yourself in uncomfortable situations to avoid.
Yeah, and even like, say the uncomfortable conversations or talking to the team, it's just having an understanding of your coach and like what he expects of you individually and what he expects of the team as a whole. And when we're not up to that standard, then you can see the frustration from the coach's side, and that's our cue to pick it up. And as a leader, you need to begin that and not be a good example for everybody else because they're looking to you.
Right. So I know, like, there's obviously a lot of pressure that's put on you as a leader, as someone who is expected to perform at a very high level. And that can be difficult at times. And we've talked about it before, but the analogy I always use is from the NBA's Greg Popovich and Tim Duncan, where he was the star player on the team. Greg Popovich, Hall of Fame coach, Tim Duncan, Hall of Fame player. But he would, when he was upset with the team, he would direct a lot of his anger at Tim Duncan because he knew he could take it. And he would be able to send a message to the rest of the team by yelling at the best player or one of the best players. And I find like a parallel to that, I see it a lot where a lot of the frustration, a lot of the anger is put towards some of the top players, and especially you, because they know you can take it. They know that it's not coming from a place of true negativity. Yeah. But that expectation is very high. And I've had experiences on the bench of our games where you have come off the field at halftime or whatever, and depending on your performance, I mean, there have been games where the performance wasn't there and you know it. And I can tell when you know it. But there's been games where you come off and you've had a pretty good game thus far, and it doesn't matter. Like, coach is still going to rip you. He's still going to ask for more. He's still going to push you. And I can see there's like a level of frustration involved in that where you're like, I'm killing it out there, or I'm doing everything I can and certain people aren't pulling their weight, or we're just struggling as a team. Like, it might not be anybody specific. It's just we've come up against another team we're just struggling against. They're, for whatever reason, we're having a tough day. And in those moments, like, I can see it. I read body language pretty well. I can see your frustration, and I try and pick and choose my moments with players, and especially ones I have really good relationships with. I'll just, walk up and with you, I always, it's not exactly the most PG thing, but I would just walk up and just be like, you're the best fucking player on the field. Just keep doing what you're doing. And I can feel sometimes there's a heavy weight that's involved, and it's just like if we can lift that weight just a little bit, and you are allowed to perform the way you need to perform. I know he's doing what he needs to do, and he's sending the message he needs to send. And sometimes, even if it's not your fault, he's sending the message through you to everyone else. Like, no one is bulletproof. Not even the captain, not even the leader, not even the person that everybody perceives as my favorite. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that are going to take it the worst, but it's a message to everyone. So in those moments where you're like, you feel like you've done everything you can, or you feel like you're performing well and it's still not good enough. And it might not just be him specifically, but maybe even yourself or your teammates or whatever. You're maybe not feeling criticized, but the expectations in other people's minds are not being met. How do you manage the pressure and the emotions of that moment? And a lot of times it's in the middle of the game.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like a pressure, like the amount of pressure I put on myself is a lot, and I expect myself to perform at a certain level. So when I'm not, it's very easy to tell by my body language towards myself, not towards others, but like I kind of beat myself up. Then when I go and my coach also, that's the extra pressure on it. Mm-hmm. Like obviously there's a certain amount of pressure necessary to compete. Like pressure is a part of playing competitive sports, and like it's good. Like it can be helpful if you use it correctly. But so often I find myself like, with the extra pressure added from my coach, I find myself shutting down internally. And as a leader, if you turn off, then the team, like, they have nowhere to look to.
Right.
So that's something over time I've been getting better with. It's not perfect because sometimes things get to you, and like, again, we're human, so like we all make mistakes. Yeah. But like it's being able to push through and continue playing even when it's not your day. Because like so often being a top player, you're used to like getting all the goals, but like if you're not performing and you know you're not performing, it's how can I help the team perform? Right. And that's like a huge part of it that I've had to learn, because so often I'm like, well, I can't do anything. Like there's no point in me even being out here right now. And like my coach isn't happy with me, so like what's the point of me even being here? Put someone else in that can actually do it.
Yeah.
But like when players are looking to you, like how you react to when you're not playing well, it's like by you just shutting down and being like, I'm over it, I'm done. Like that like sets the tone for the rest of the team. And like, if you're a leader, you can't be like that, because then they have no one to look to, and then like the whole mantra of the team shuts down. So I feel like using that pressure to be like, okay, it's not my day, I'm frustrated, I can be frustrated, like that's fine. But like the game is still going on, so you need to figure out how you can contribute. And I feel like that's something I've learned a lot over this last high school season, because it started off rough. My coach and I would get into it a lot of hard conversations between him and I about like how we were supposed to communicate to each other on the field. A lot of frustration, a lot of frustration and anger. But I feel like we started to understand that like, yes, him being verbal to me is how he communicates to the team, and it's not necessarily directed towards me. It's directed to send a message to the team, and if I can take it and like if I can work through that and understand that like it's for the greater good of the team, then the team will respond better to me and to the coach, because it like builds a level of respect between me and the team. Be like, wow, she's getting reamed right now, but she's still working hard. I feel like that's huge, and that's super important. And it's not easy at all. Like it takes a lot out of you to be getting ripped for like your mediocre game might be better than most of everyone else's game, but you're still getting ripped. It's like, it definitely like mentally is really confusing, but like once I'm out of competitive mode, I can take a step back and be like, that's what we needed to win this game, and that's what we needed to compete. And even though it wasn't necessarily the most fun for me, it builds up my mentality and my strength mentally, and it helped the team perform at a higher level. And ultimately, I just want to win so bad that like, if that's how we win, that's how we win. And I will have my game where I am, my touch is good, everything's working out for me. But when it's not, it's like taking a step back, being able to like get out of my competitive mode and be like, okay, I know you want to win so bad, so how can you contribute, and how can you help the team win even though you're not necessarily performing at the level you prefer? I feel like that's a really hard balance that like still like I struggle with, because if I'm not playing my game, I'm like, what the heck, Briley, go sit on the bench.
Yeah.
That's where you belong. But it's just contributing how you can on that specific day. I feel like it's huge. And the pressure that goes with that is being able to channel your emotions enough to still be out there and play with your teammates, even when like I just want to like scream over in the corner.
Yeah, go home.
Yeah.
When you get, so I used to struggle with something similar with getting out of my competitive mode, right? My emotions were really caught up with the game and the results and everything. How does it take you a long time to remove you? Like, it's got to be frustrating, whatever the situation is, even when you win, but you don't have your best game, or even when you thought you played well, but you're still taking a lot of the criticism or the difficulties of the team are kind of thrust upon you, and you are meant to carry that weight for the team so that everyone can understand. How long does it take you to get out of that headspace? And is there anything that you're doing specifically to help you get there? Like, I feel like mentality for top athletes is a huge thing, and everyone deals with things differently. And I want to talk too about your time as a gymnast when you were younger, which I think is a crazy mentality sport.
Yeah, no.
So which I'm sure contributed to how you deal with things. But I'm fascinated in how you transition from the difficult game to coming home, to decompressing, to changing that focus and that mentality, because I know as a competitor, it's difficult to get yourself out of that headspace.
Yeah. I feel like the second, obviously, I walk on the field, like, that's all that's there. Like, we're going to win, like, no matter what cost. I feel like then if I have a good game, like, I just walk off the field and I'm like, I'm happy. I'd go do whatever. But if I say I don't perform, even if I score goals or, like, I have high output and I don't play how I feel like I should play, I'm not connecting passes, I still, like, I drive home, I sit in my car and I'm just like, what the heck was that? Yeah. And like, it's usually an all night thing. Like, I might not necessarily be like sitting in my dark room, like annoyed about it, but I'm like, sad music. Yeah. But it's like, it's on my mind all night, and even until the next game, because I'm like, I need to like perform at a level that, yourself. Yes, exactly. So it's like, I'm not necessarily still in the competitive mode, because once I'm off the field, like, it runs my mind the whole time, because I know I'm better than that. So me not performing at the level I know I should perform at, it will take up my whole mind until I get to play again and prove that I can play at the level I know I can play at. So I feel like...
And that's proving it to yourself.
Yes. Not necessarily. And obviously, of course, it's fun to like have other people be like, oh yeah, she's so good. But like, really just to myself, because that's what is most important. And like the people that I care about, like obviously my coach and I have a great relationship. So like, he knows the level I can play at too. So like, when I don't perform, he knows, he's right there. He's in my ear about it. So just like being able to perform for myself and for those people is key, like, and super important to me. And I feel like until I perform at that level, I will be frustrated about whatever's going on. And I feel like a good example of that is the Valencia game this year. We were playing horrible. And like, me personally, I was playing horrible and I was so mad. And I got ripped at halftime for it.
I was there.
And I was like, I was probably like in the worst mood I was in probably all high school season from that game. And then like after halftime, I'm still not playing great, but I scored 2 goals. And after the game, I like talked to my mom. She's like, great job, 2 goals. I'm like, yeah, but I played like crap. Like, yeah, 2 goals or whatever, but like that should have been like a 4-5-0 game, and we won 3-0, 2-0, because I don't know, but also like my body language was horrible that game. I was so frustrated. So it's like thinking about that now, I'm like, I could have been a better team player and team support in that game, but I was so caught up in my individual frustration with myself that like I couldn't even function. Yeah. So it's like, do you find yourself,
so I'm someone who really focuses on failure as part of the process. Some people don't like to talk about failure, but I think it's a super important aspect of being a top level athlete and a person as well. Like, when you fail at things, you learn. Yeah. And sometimes it's those harder games that teach you more. Are you able to take, even when you're feeling bad, you're like, I played poorly, even though I scored or whatever, my output was high, but I felt like my game was poorly. Are you taking stock and are you learning from those situations? And do you feel that you learn more from the bad games than you do from the ones where you play well?
Definitely in the moment, I'm so like turned off. I'm like, no, this sucks. Like I just want to win.
Mm-hmm.
But like I feel like looking back at it now, I feel like I definitely learned more from that game because I was frustrated. I had to communicate even when I was frustrated, which is a hard thing to do because when you're frustrated, you just want to like not talk to anybody.
Yeah.
So I feel
or yell at everyone.
Yeah. So I feel like learning to communicate how I'm feeling and what's bothering me in the moment is more than just soccer too. Like I feel like that's for life.
Yeah.
And then also being able to find myself and score 2 goals in that game, or like being able to get yourself out of that bad headspace is like a huge like tool that can be learned. And you don't learn that by just winning every game 6-0. Like that's something you have to learn by getting frustrated and like getting shut down sometimes. And I feel like it's okay to get shut down and frustrated, but learning to get yourself out of it so you can keep playing is like a huge like aspect to being a competitive athlete and performing at a high level.
Yeah.
So
I'm always fascinated by people who were gymnasts or are gymnasts and transition into other sports because, I mean, gymnasts are some of the top athletes in the world, and they're also probably the highest pressured athletes in the world. The expectations for you to perform at an insanely high level with perfect position and technique, and you're being graded on these things. The pressure is extremely high, and we started at an extremely young age. So when I found out that you were formerly a competitive gymnast, I was like, everything makes sense now. The competitiveness, the crazy core strength, like you are an incredible, like agile soccer player. You really move the ball well. You're like swift on the field, but you also truck the shit out of people. And I can see it happening in the game where it's like you get frustrated, you'll run through somebody. And that's another part of being a leader is sending a message when it needs to be sent, whether it be to our team or to the other team. And sometimes games are getting out of hand and it's up to the people who are in charge to handle it and set the tone. And you are a tone setter at the minimum. So when I found out you were a gymnast, I was like, okay, everything makes sense. You're a high flyer. You play all over the field. Another thing I want to talk about is being a Swiss Army knife. You play every position when you need to. But can you talk about like how, like your life as a competitive gymnast when you were younger and how it affects your mentality and your game now as a soccer player? Because soccer is your sport. You don't really do anything else anymore. When did that transition happen, and how has it helped you in your pursuit and in your career as a soccer player?
I feel like starting with gymnastics, I was super young. So I started soccer and gymnastics when I was like, as young as you could start both sports. That's when I started. And I was doing them both. And it's very demanding, especially gymnastics. Like 3-4 days a week, 3-hour trainings each. Like you live at the gym pretty much if you want to go anywhere in gymnastics. And that on top of soccer practices, like that was my life growing up. Like that's all and I loved it. Like there was nothing wrong with that. It's like, it's who I was. But then like, I feel like being a gymnast, it teaches you so much more than you know. But you don't realize that until after you quit gymnastics. The gymnastics coaches are some of the most demanding people I've ever met in my life. But they simply just want you to succeed. And the only way to go far in gymnastics is that pressure and the demanding like lifestyle you have to live. We would do an hour of conditioning every day just because being strong is such a huge part of it. And you do whatever your events are, you train all that so many days a week I had 3 to 4 meets a year. And in those meets, you had one run, so 3 seconds, and you had to perform. So much pressure. Like stick it, like land everything. Like the littlest details will take off points. So I feel like it kind of like makes you a perfectionist. You're like, oh, my toes weren't pointed. I didn't do this. I didn't like straighten my legs in this one part. It's like, it makes you realize the little details. And like, then that on top of strength, like, it's just like a combo that like it's growing up having that. I am so thankful my parents put me in gymnastics. Like it taught me so many more things than like, obviously soccer teaches me a lot, but like more life things than anything. And I feel like how demanding it was from such a young age. Like you have to be mature and you have to have a work ethic or you're not going to succeed.
That's where I would imagine you learned your discipline.
Yes. And with gymnastics, the type of gymnastics I did, I was the youngest one. So everyone else was 4 or 5 years older than me. So they were all doing much bigger tricks and stuff, but I actually like went a long way faster because I was watching them and I was training with them.
Trying to
Like,
keep up.
yep, trying to keep up with the older people. So I feel like that's another thing. Like being around people who are better than you
Mhm.
make you have to work harder. And even though it sucks, you're like, I'm the worst one here. Like later you'll be like, I improved way faster because I had to step up.
Mhm.
And I feel like just having that from gymnastics, that mindset going into even soccer, like it relays so easily, and like it's a huge tool. And I feel like more than ability or anything, it just teaches you mindset.
Yeah.
Like you have to work and you have to do everything to the best because you don't know when you're going to get another opportunity to perform in front of that person or at that level. And I feel like I never wanted to quit gymnastics. It was like, I love gymnastics. I still love gymnastics. I wish I never had to quit.
Mhm.
But in order to go to the next level of soccer, I had to make a decision. And I was naturally more gifted at soccer. I had to work hard to be good at gymnastics,
Mhm.
which was fun for me because like I didn't naturally have that talent. Like I had to do everything. I had extra trainings, 1 hour a week, 2 hours a week. Like I was in the gym putting the work in.
Mhm.
And like for soccer, it just came more naturally to me. So I feel like that's another thing, like having a sport where I was naturally more talented, and then having another sport that I competed at a very high level in, but I also had to work super hard to compete at that high level.
Yeah.
It teaches you things that like you don't even expect to learn at such a young age too. And I feel like especially relating to competitive athletics, like being the worst one on the field and having to work your way up
Mhm.
teaches you more than walking on the field as the best player. So yeah, and I actually only switched from gymnastics when I was like 12 or 13. I stopped for good. It was because
So not that long ago.
no, it was because of an injury too. It was like
Mhm.
my final like, okay, once I'm better, it's gonna be soccer all the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was a hard decision.
That I loved it. Like if I could still do 1 or 2 classes a week, I so would. I just it makes you so strong and it's so fun.
Yeah. Well, I can see that it was a difficult process for you. But you made a good point there where a lot of the lessons that you learned as a gymnast were not really about gymnastics, they're about life. And that is my biggest thing. I work mostly with goalkeepers, and my biggest thing with being a goalkeeper is that it's a very close allegory for life. You get beat, you get scored on, you get blamed, you fail, you gotta pick yourself up, you do it again. And I think things like gymnastics and doing hard things when you're younger, but that are fun for you, are good ways to learn discipline and resiliency and how to bounce back from difficult situations. I can imagine you talking about needing to get back on the field to prove to yourself that you were that you can play at the high level for soccer. It must have been very difficult having a meet that didn't go well and then having to wait months until the next meet. And I mean, I don't know if you feel that in practice where you can like, it's one thing to hit something in practice is another. It's same in soccer. It's one thing to be able to do it in practice, another thing to do it when the lights are on.
Yeah.
So your transition happens 12 to 13. What was the injury?
I broke my foot, but I broke it twice. So I was in a boot for like 6 months. So it was like I was going from sports my whole life to doing nothing was like I was destroyed. Like I didn't know what to do with myself.
So that's something I talk to athletes a lot about is who are you when you're no longer an athlete? A lot of people who are really top competitors and who dedicate themselves to their sports, they define themselves as athletes. And I tell everyone at some point, your career is going to end, whether it be, a year from now, whether it be 10 years from now, whether you do it as a professional or in college or in high school, or an injury ends your career, which we'll be talking about people with that too.
Yeah.
Your career is going to end. What do you do when you can no longer do the thing that defines you? And especially as a young person, it's your whole life. And clearly it was your whole life.
Yeah.
So what goes on in that 6-month period? Where are you at mentally? And especially you're like just becoming a teenager. It's a very critical time, a turbulent time for kids. And for somebody in my mind who does really well with or at least is able to manage their mental health very well, considering the amount of pressure that you're under, how are you managing it during that period of time when you literally can't do anything because the thing that you need is not available to you?
I honestly have no idea how I got through that time because even like, okay, I sprained my ankle, like a minor injury, but you have to sit out for like a week. Like I go crazy. Like I need to train at least like a few days a week or go to the gym or something.
Yeah.
Just because it keeps me sane. So like during that time specifically, I remember I was in the gym just doing ab workouts, upper body workouts for gymnastics, like all that. Like I was still going to my trainings and stuff. And obviously it's hard to watch everyone, but like just being a part of it and being there is huge to me. So I feel like that was a huge part of me getting back. And then like I'd hang out with my friends. I wasn't used to doing that all the time. Like I went to events, I went to things, which is really important to being an athlete. Like you need to have a social life to balance it.
Right.
Like as much as you put the work in, you need to have something else to keep you sane and grounded. And I feel like it gets lost when you have such a demanding schedule, specifically when you're playing multiple sports or doing multiple things. But I honestly, like in that time period, I was at some of my lowest points because like something that defines you. And then when it gets taken away, like you don't know what to do with yourself. And it's actually really good because that shouldn't define you as a person. Like you should be yourself. So it's a blessing in disguise, but
it's a learning experience.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's the worst. I hate injuries.
Yeah, me too. I feel like even now, I didn't really play, but being able to do it is a huge thing for positive mentality.
Yeah.
There's so many ways to go there. So you said one of your lowest points is breaking your foot, like the lowest you've been as an athlete, or is there something else in your mind where you're like, I don't know how I got out of this place or how I got into this place. Like I'm always interested. The highest highs, everybody talks about, like, you know, winning stuff is really cool, but it's fleeting. Like it's kind of on to the next. And those moments are great. You get to celebrate, you get to have a nice time with your friends. But again, I feel like you learn a lot more from the defeats.
Yeah.
And so I'm always interested to know when were you at your lowest? What do you do when you're in that moment? And then I want to talk about getting to spend time with your friends and sacrifice. That's the next big thing. So when you're at your lowest, like was that the moment, or do you think is there something else in your mind? Or
I don't even think it was specifically the injury when I was at my lowest, but it was getting back from the injury because you're like, you know the level you could perform at and you did perform at before, and you're just not there where you used to be. And it's so frustrating because you're like, 6 months ago, I could do this no problem. And now my touch is getting away from my foot. Like, what the heck is going on? But I feel like working back through and like understanding that I wasn't a top player on my team. I came off the bench and got like 20 minutes a half, 15 minutes a half, and being able to build yourself back up. And obviously we got a new coach, and he like really helped me come out of my shell, and like as a soccer player and a person, and I shot like was thriving after that. But
do you think that has to do with dedicating yourself to soccer too?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Because I didn't just get good all of a sudden. Like I had to train, and we would train like 3 days a week, and then an extra day of just shooting, just to get the extra work in. Like, and doing like movements, band exercises, like all this stuff that I hate doing. Like you have to do though, and it's part of like, okay, yeah, I'm the low man on the totem pole right now. This sucks. Like, boo me. Or are you gonna like work to get back to where you know you can be? And I feel like that is the decision that like makes athletes go from good to great and play at high level. So I feel like that definitely was my lowest coming back from that injury, because knock on wood, thank goodness, I've never had any crazy injuries. But like 6 months being out, that's a huge progression of time period where people are getting better and you're not. Yeah. So coming back from that and trying to find myself as a soccer player again was probably my lowest point. And like ever since then, I've been on like a steady, like obviously ebb and flows, because that's how athletes, it's how it works. Sure. But like I've been on a steady rise since then, and I feel like that is huge to improving and getting better. So getting out of that rough patch and like just getting a little better every day since then is like so important.
I think you gotten a lot better.
Yeah.
I think you're doing pretty all right for yourself. So one of the other things you talked about was in that time period where you were injured, you have a lot more free time. And I think a lot of people look at the elite athlete, the high level player, the person who's dedicated themselves to the sport, who's getting offers to play in college, who's, now it's people getting NIL endorsements, and you see young people playing professional sports at high levels. And people look at these people and they think they have the perfect life. Like they have everything going for them. But what they don't see is all of the sacrifices throughout your life that you have had to make and the choices you've had to make to not really be a normal kid and instead dedicate yourself to doing this thing. So it's interesting to hear you say like, oh, I was at a pretty low point in my injury, but I got to spend time with my friends, which is what you don't really get to do when you dedicate yourself to this thing. And along with that, your friends, your really, really close friends, becoming your teammates, because those are the people that you spend all of your time with.
And they understand, like
they're doing it too.
They have the same schedule.
Yeah.
I feel I've been super lucky to have essentially the same group of friends since I was in kindergarten, because I went to the small private Christian school and like grew up, and then they transferred as I transferred. So like I've been super lucky to have them, and they understand, like even though they're not athletes, like they're like, Briley has practice, we get it. But like growing up with them, like we've seen every step of each other. So like they've seen me my low points and when I've been doing great, and just really it's a testament to them making time to hang out with me. Like my friends have moved birthday parties so I can go. Wow. Like it's just like they're really great people, and they understand that like I have these goals for myself and that they're rooting for me as much as I want it for myself. So even like I had high school super demanding, like 2 games a week, practice every day. My friends show up at my game with signs. Like it's just the little things that like, and going to dinner with them after, like it's important to have a balance in that way, because if you don't, then you're just gonna you're gonna be lonely, and you're gonna find yourself like separated from everybody else. And then even like my teammates becoming my best friends, like growing up, I wasn't necessarily as close with them because I went to different schools, all them. I had my other sports, so I couldn't really hang out. Right. And we just necessarily didn't like click how we do now. But then like as the years went on, I transferred, we get older, we spend more time together. Like so there's some girls on that team that like are my best friends, and like I know they'll be my best friends forever. Like I spend so much time with them aside from soccer, just because we just genuinely enjoy being together. And they are some of the most genuine people I've ever met in my life, and are often like if soccer wasn't a thing, I would have never met them. Like we're just on complete different sides of the school. Like we hang out with different people. Right. So it's not that like one of us is cooler than the other or anything like that. It's just we would have never taken the time to get to know each other how we do. Would have had the opportunity. Yeah. And I feel like that is like such a gift, because like one of my best friends, I would have never met her if I didn't play soccer. We are just complete different people, but we just complement each other and we get along so well that like if it weren't for soccer, I would have never met her. So it's using soccer and the competitive and being there all the time to form those relationships that like I know I'm gonna be friends with her forever. Like she's gonna be at my wedding for sure. Like she's one of my best friends. And it's like recognizing that you need those people and you need them in your corner, soccer friends and non-soccer friends, because without them, like you're not gonna go far, and you're gonna find yourself like being lonely and being alone and not like honestly them being at my games like I want to perform now. My friends are here. They're gonna watch me play. Like and like them acknowledging like moving hangouts, being like, yeah, Briley's gonna be late. She has soccer. It's like it's huge, and it means a lot, especially coming like because soccer is my number one goal. But I do love these people, and like even family. Like I love these people, but I'm kind of absent sometimes because of my sport. I feel like seeing that they understand and make the effort, and if I make the effort too, then like and you do. I mean your friends play sports, you go to their games, so it's a balance. It's nice when the people that you care about in your life take and are invested in the thing that you love to do. Like this soccer is your love, and they're sharing. They come into the game, they can't participate with you, but they can share it with you. And I feel like not letting that be necessarily a distraction. Like I've never been a partier. It's not really my personality, my beliefs, like how I grew up. There's nothing wrong with it to me, but like it's just never been me. So I feel like having people around me that have similar interests and are encouraging me to do things that will slow me down athletically is huge. And like having them understand, and my family being that support system too, like them being at all my games, my sister, her kids always there, like it means like more than they would ever expect it to me. So it's huge, and I feel like it's more important than people think, because keeping you mentally stable outside of soccer, being with people, everyone needs people. We're human. Like everyone needs to feel love from people. So I feel like having that helps you improve soccer wise more than people expect. Yeah. Has there ever been anything like big that you've had to miss that you like look back and you're like,
I don't know if I would have missed it again.
I missed my senior formal to do an ID camp in Tennessee for soccer.
And how was that?
I would have rather gone to formal personally.
Yeah.
But that school did reach out after and show interest, and I'd already committed. But I feel like those experiences are important because I would have been left wondering about that school because that was one of my dream schools.
Sure.
I would have been left wondering, well, what if I never, what if they wanted me and I missed out on that opportunity?
Yeah.
So as much as my senior year formal is important, I think we should go if you can because those experiences are part of high school and you need to experience that. That was an opportunity for me soccer-wise that I don't feel like I could have passed up.
Yeah.
And I mean, as sad as it is, I went to my junior formal, I went to prom, so it's not like I missed huge things. That's just everyone wants to go to formal.
It's still something. Your friends are all there. You see the pictures. You're good. You see the pictures. It's difficult. So I mean, this is my big thing with dealing with young athletes is there are decisions that you have to make that other kids don't have to.
Yeah.
It's other kids' decision to whether or not to go to formal is if they want to go or not.
Yeah.
Or it has nothing to do with sacrificing things that they want to do for things that they feel they have to do.
Yeah.
And it's one of the big things for me with a lot of elite level athletes is there isn't really the understanding of how much time, effort, sacrifice goes into achieving those levels and then maintaining those levels. And that's one of another of the many reasons why I want to have conversations like this, not only to help other athletes who are trying to get where you are understand that there's a hefty amount of sacrifice that goes into it, but also to let other people know who maybe aren't as invested, who think, oh, her life is great, she's player of the year or whatever. It's not just handed to you. Obviously it's earned, but there's a level, and I see it. I see all kids of all different skill levels and spectrums of talent and ability and genetics and whatever it might be, but there is no substitute for a relentless work ethic and a substantial amount of hard work. And I think there are a lot of people who will look at another player and think, oh, they're just naturally gifted or it was all handed to them. It's who they know. And in some cases, they are naturally gifted or they do have a relationship with someone where they got an in somewhere. But you can't discount the kind of work that they're putting in and the effort that is required to get up every day, even when you don't want to. Are there days where you get up where you're just I don't want to do this today.
I'm tired, something hurts, it's a part of it. And I feel like that sacrifice, some things you're sacrificing, you're I kind of wanted to go to that, but other things, it's a no-brainer. I love going to practice. Maybe I don't love going to the gym as much, but I love going to practice. So missing things to go to practice doesn't bother me. Games, I love that. But then there's certain big events where it's a tougher decision, and but then you need to value what's important to you and your future and athletically there. And then I feel that makes the decision way easier, even though afterwards you might be bummed, you see pictures of your friends doing this, but in order to play at the level that I want to play at, that sacrifice is part of it.
Right.
And I feel understanding that, and I love the sport so much, and if you love it so much, it doesn't bother you as much as it would bother someone else who just doesn't understand. And there's nothing wrong with that. They just don't have the same mindset towards it that you do. I feel that's huge because missing all my friends' graduation parties because I had a tournament in San Diego. Obviously I want to be there to support them, but I have an opportunity to play at a high level against great teams with some of my best friends. I can't really ask for much more than that. And
your other friends understand.
Yeah.
Like you said, they've been with you all this way. It's not that Briley doesn't want to come. She can't.
Yeah, exactly.
Because soccer always comes first.
Yes, and that's a part of it that even non-athletic people it doesn't click for them. Even some family members, it's not that they're annoyed or frustrated that I can't make it. They just don't see
they don't understand.
Yeah, and that's not. I don't blame them because I don't understand. I'm not a music person, so missing for a music event or something like that, I'm that's so dumb. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
But it goes both ways. They're why is she going to her game instead of this? It's stupid. I'm
it's just a game.
Yeah, but it's a chance to get better, and I feel that is something that's so often overlooked.
Yeah, for you, it's not just a game.
Yeah,
it's more than that. I think that's a big thing for a lot of athletes is people don't understand how invested you are, and they don't really understand how you can love something so much. Also, when it takes so much from you.
Yeah.
That's a big thing for me. Is getting an understanding of how much it gives to you. We've talked about
Yeah.
learning lessons. We've talked about, improving yourself as a person and becoming more resilient, and all these really great things that being an athlete and playing high level sports can give to you.
Mm-hmm.
But it also can take so much,
Yeah.
your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health, and your relationships with friends and family. Exactly. So I think sometimes, and maybe as athletes, we need to look at people doing other things and be like, they're sacrificing in a similar way. It's just, I think the physical exertion aspect of it is a big part, because injury and sacrificing your body is always a risk.
Yeah. Risk I'm willing to take.
Yeah, and I think for the vast majority of people who want to play at the next level, it is a risk they're willing to take. They'll risk everything to do it. And so you've committed to play at Biola Division II soccer. It's, I think, your coach moving in there, he got the job and you quickly committed after, and as well as another player from our team.
Yeah.
And is there, obviously you have a relationship with this coach, you want to continue playing for him. Why Biola? Why is it the place that you feel like is going to be the best spot for you? Because you had other offers. There were other schools that wanted you. And people might look at your resume from last season and be like, why is the player of the year deciding to go play Division II at a school that might not have a great track record? And they're a good program. And trust me, I have full belief that the program is about to skyrocket. But why Biola for you?
Obviously I'm religious, so the faith aspect is huge, aside from soccer.
Sure.
And academically super strong school, which is important more to my parents than to me.
Yeah.
But they're up there with like the major universities, which is super cool. So like getting a education at that level is a great opportunity.
Right.
And then obviously getting the opportunity to play for this coach again. I was already being recruited by the old coach, and I had an offer, and it was in the running for me. I just didn't know who the new coach was going to be. I was really deciding between Biola and another school.
You could name drop one.
Oh, Cal State LA, which also is a really high level program. They won the tournament, they won their league, like they're legit. And going to Biola, which didn't have as great of a season last year, but has huge potential going forward for the future.
Especially since Briley Phelps is going.
I feel like this coach has invested so much into me soccer wise and as a person. And like I've grown so much both ways under him. I feel like getting the opportunity to play under him for 4 more years is an awesome opportunity for me. And I know his style of play, so that's another thing. Like going into it, knowing what he expects of me. And obviously it's a higher level and nothing's going to be given to me. I'm going to need to work for it.
Sure.
Which is a part of it. And that's how I prefer it, because no one wants to be a freshman that walks in and is just handed everything, because that makes there be no respect between you and your teammates. I feel like
prove it to everybody.
Walking in, getting to compete at that level, and having a school that aligns with all my beliefs, and getting to play under this coach, doing something that I love, I feel like it was a no-brainer. And after all that, like, it made the choice really easy, and I was struggling with it for a long time. I was talking to another school that's another level. I was talking to a D1. I was a little late to the recruiting process, so the opportunities weren't as high.
It seems to be a recurring theme of a lot of people.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like, if we knew earlier, there'd maybe be more opportunities, but you can't live like that. Like, I'm super happy with where I'm gonna go. I'm super excited for the team. Huge opportunities, going on trips. Like, the program is just everything that I wanted and that my parents felt comfortable with, which is also huge, because my mom Cal State LA is a bigger school. Like, there's a lot more different types of people there, which is not a bad thing, just a lot of learning experiences. As she felt Biola, like, I would have just fit in from the beginning and like found people that live similar to me, have similar beliefs to me. And it's important to have other people, because like that's how you grow and get to know people. And as I said earlier, like, some of my best friends are completely opposite people than me, which is important. But I feel like being in a program that has the beliefs that I have,
it's the right environment.
Yeah. And that I can grow, not only soccer wise, but in my faith I can grow. It's huge. And I feel like that was like kind of the final decision make for Biola. Like, and now that I made the decision, like, looking back at it months later, I'm like, I'm so thankful that's what I chose, because if soccer gets taken away, Lord willing it doesn't, I know I'd still be happy going there, and I'd still like have a good time at that school. And like, I feel like that is so important, because happiness extends farther than soccer.
Yes.
Even though to me that is like like it's kind of like I have blinders on for soccer, like it's the number one thing, but like just
identifying yourself as more than just an athlete. Look at you. Look at the progress you've made. That's so good. I'm very happy for you, and I think you're going to do great things there.
I'm excited.
I have no doubt that the program will reach the next level with Coach and Briley Phelps at the helm. So, all right. So I like to kind of wrap things up with a simple question, but it can go in a lot of different directions. So my hope is that there's going to be a lot of people like yourself, maybe younger people, or people in a similar place to you who are going to be listening, who are looking to gain some information about the process or how you as a leader think through things or whatever it might be. But I always like to get a little piece of advice that you might give someone who's looking to get where you've gotten or who's in a similar situation to yourself. So is there a piece of advice that you want to give people, either something you've heard from a coach or something that you would like to give yourself that you think is going to be something that's powerful for them?
I feel like working hard and just putting your head down, like not being this huge, like, look at me, I'm great. If you put your head down, your teammates respect you a lot more than that. And if you just work consistently, it's like so admirable by older teammates, and getting to know older teammates and have a relationship with them, because ultimately like the coach is going to ask the players who they want on the field. And if that player like thinks that you have been working and like you deserve a chance, then they're going to say you, and that's going to get you farther than your teammates not liking you, because if they don't like you, A, they're not going to give you the ball, and B, like they're not going to stick their neck out for you and help you out.
Yeah, they're not going to advocate for you at all.
So I feel like that's huge, like forming relationships with teammates in general, but specifically teammates that are older than you, play in your position, and like that, like you see yourself being in a few years, specifically at like the high school and the college level, because in club you're all the same age, but like finding someone who you want to like model yourself after is super important, and goes back to just working hard all the time. I feel like that's like you can't ever go wrong doing that. So, yeah.
All right, dude. Well, thank you so much for doing this.
Of course.
You're an absolute G. And I want everybody we have on, when they go off to college, I want to follow up after the season, see how things go. So we're definitely going to check in. Okay? You got to let me know how it goes.
Yep.
All right. Thank you so much, bro. Appreciate you.
Thank you, dog.
Yeah. All right.
That was good.
Thank you once again to our guest this week, Briley Phelps, our producer, Malin Blade, and everybody listening. Check out our next episode for another Athletes Unleashed. Later, homies.